you tell me your name and what you do at n8n?
I'm Jamie, and I'm the Senior Dev Rel in Education here at n8n. So I run the education team of one, and I'm able to do that, thankfully, with the help of n8n and automation. So the education team, or education division, is an ever-evolving little beast, and it starts with internal training, external training, course development, as well as working with hundreds of education partners. So that is from helping them teach n8n externally. So that could be in a traditional university, it could be in a one-week boot camp. And what we do is we provide curriculum assessments at the moment. So that allows people to submit their curriculum to us and we provide guidance to ensure that they're ticking all the boxes that we require to say, yes, you're teaching n8n. Because for me, education is very important in being able to use the product to the best of their ability, because it is a technical product. It's not as easy as some other tools, but it's also much easier than programming. And a lot of frustrations that users have with the product is mostly because they don't understand how to use it. And education is very important to be able to get them across that line. So being able to understand how data works and moves, what inputs and outputs are, what you should and shouldn't be automating, when to use AI, when to use a human in the loop, and all of these things, if you use education to teach the users how to get to that quicker, then it allows them to succeed quicker. And pretty much with any technical tool, if you don't know how to use it, you usually discard it after a little while. So having an education team to create all of these resources and materials for our users is very powerful in increasing adoption, but also giving them the confidence in being able to automate various things.
Can you tell me about, like, where do you use n8n to your day-to-day work? What impact does that have? And like what your philosophy is in terms of like what is automated, what gets sent to AI, like big picture of what? So
because I'm working with a lot of partners, we have over 200 education partners now, and I manage all of those. But I would only be able to do that because I automate a lot of the busy work that's required in managing partners. So all of our initial outreach is completely automated. So that doesn't mean that I'm firing off draft emails that I've never read. So what I have is all of our systems, we have human in the loop, that's me. So instead of me spending half my day replying to emails, I spend between 15 and 30 minutes a day reading all of the drafts that the AI has created based on a whole bunch of workflows that I created. So that allows me to mostly automate the initial connection, and then I step in when the conversation's actually, how can we help you? What do you need? And part of that with education partners is we assess curriculums. So I built in a curriculum assessment tool that allows me to have them submit their curriculum. We have particular requirements to be able to say that this curriculum meets our standards. And that is, again, fully automated to the point where I get a report where I can read that report. Prior to this system that I built, it would take about 6 hours to assess a single curriculum. That's now a 10-minute job maximum.
And how often and about how much work would you say goes into, like, because you talked about human in the loop. What would you say your like success rate is of like, oh, that looks good, send it off, versus tweaks, or versus like having to
95%.
95%, wow.
Yeah, but to begin with, it was maybe 50-50. And so it took me a long time, months of iterations of the prompts, and also our requirements
and the
change.
Workflows probably too, right?
Yeah, so like, to be honest, the workflows they don't look that complicated. Most of them have less than 15 nodes. So you keep it simple because then there's less for it to break, and it's easier to adapt it. So I start with a prompt builder, and then I iterate that prompt within my agent that I run on my desktop. And then when it's at a point where I have confidence that I can let it go into the wild by itself, then I convert it into a full workflow, and then I just get a daily summary of what needs to be done. So that took a long time to get it really well done. And every time a new version of a model comes out, I then have to run evals over all my prompts because I would have to use the most state-of-the-art models, which are very expensive, but it's still cheaper than having 3 staff member doing it. So it looks expensive on paper based on token usage and costs, but every kind of 4 months we get a model where the lower version of the model is just as good as the state-of-the-art. Yeah. So going between like Sonnet and Opus, Sonnet powers probably 75% of all my workflows because it's very fast and it does a good job. But prior to 4.6 coming out, I had to use the Opus models for everything. And I use a lot of open source models as well for categorization, email labeling, the kind of stuff where you don't need a heavy model. So the OpenAI GPT models are fantastic for that kind of stuff. So that allows me to label my emails.
For sure. Can you tell me about it's pretty stressful when you have a production workflow that's doing actual work in a system and swapping the prompt and swapping the model out. How do you kind of approach doing that safely and making sure it won't really affect anything negatively?
And it's because I don't fire anything off without checking it. I still check every single draft. I still check every single report. And the assessment curriculum system is not perfect. And sometimes it'll say there's not enough information. It's because the workflow missed one of the submission files. So then I have to manually go through and run it again. But I just rerun the workflow with the extra files. I don't have to actually then go and read a long syllabus that someone submitted. So like one of the submissions we had was a 280-page submission. And I was like, I asked for detail, but not that much detail. But I was still able to run that through the system, and it got it wrong. So I'm like, oh, what are we going to do? And it was just because there was too many pages. So it was like, it effectively timed out. And so I had to run that one through my desktop version. So occasionally it doesn't work as it's supposed to. So, but my confidence is in the fact that I'm always there to check it. Mm-hmm. And like anyone who just lets AI loose, they're going to have a bad time, and you see it all the time on social media. It's like this open model thing that I've created just deleted all my emails. What are you going to do? Or there goes 2.5 years of production database, and I'm like, what are you doing? Where's the human in the loop? Yeah. Stop saying yes to everything. Read what it's doing.
So, what type of tasks to you are really something you would want to automate or do in a workflow or send to AI compared to what you do kind of manually by hand per se?
Yeah, so all my busy work is the stuff that I automate. So anything that you're doing that you repeat, anything that you have to do 3 or 4 times, I try and automate it. So that's the email is never going away. Anyone who says it is, it's not. But I automate as much of the email stuff as I can because that to me is busy work. It's still very important to have that communication with our partners and with the team and everybody else. But the 4 or 5 hours a week that I was spending on email, I can now spend on creating assessments for our courses, working with our external partners to ensure that they're creating the best content they can do. So then I become the human in the loop for other people. So I want to focus on the most high impact work I can, and that is creating courses, auditing the coursework that the AI is creating for us, and then the assessments, it's just not good at that. And we want to create scenarios that are realistic for them to be testing on, and so that takes a lot of work to create workflows. So our Foundations program that's coming out hopefully by the end of this month, it took me 4 weeks of manual work to create all of the assessments for that. And it's powered by about 50 workflows because everything needs to be tested and has to be automated, otherwise it won't scale. And so for me, focus on the meaty work, not the busy work.
Yeah, and the stuff I guess that we're the experts in as opposed to the filling.
Yes.
Right? Because I know you are like, everyone in the company, it's like Jamie's the education army all by yourself, right? So it's like everything related to education, even nonprofit stuff, you're handling, and you know, there is a lot of impact, obviously, that comes through there. So can you tell me about the, what like amount of time do you think you're like saving? How many extra people on the team essentially would you need if it weren't for being able to automate with AI?
It'd be 4 or 6 physical team members. So times that by 40, so 240 hours a week extra that I get back. I am not working long hours. I have a really good work-life balance. I've always thought that work-life balance is very important because if you're not recharged, you just have bad output. So for me, I think my maximum I work is 42 hours a week, and I do that on purpose, and I'm only able to do that because of the help of n8n and AI automation. Otherwise, I'd be stuck. I'd be working all day, every day.
And at a startup, it can be a little tough because you are constrained by resources and by, you know, the time you have and money sometimes. But really with n8n, that makes that possible, right? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so not only does it allow me to be able to do a lot of work, it's a lot of good quality work because I've automated the busy stuff that's, I find, it's important but distracting. So I automate those parts so I can focus on the good stuff. So more than 60% of my work week is on high impact work. And that's very important to me. Because if you see these big organizations that get very bloaty because they have a lot of people doing busy work. Yeah. And it's not fun work either. If all you're doing is answering emails and doing meetings all day, you don't feel like you're getting a good job satisfaction because all you're doing is the busy stuff. And if your life's a meeting, it's not fun at all. Yeah. So for me, being able to automate that stuff away, except meetings, I can't automate those away yet. That would be fun though.
So how do you feel about having n8n be like, you're using n8n to teach n8n, right? Like, yeah. You know, is that a funny dynamic?
I think it's the perfect example of dog fooding. Mm-hmm. So, Hundefutterzeit, which is what we call it internally, which is dog fooding in German. And using the product to teach the product is what we should be doing. I can only do that because we have n8n. I wouldn't be able to do that easily without writing a whole bunch of apps. And then that'd just be tech that I'd have to manage. And as much as I am a software engineer with 25 plus years of experience writing software, I'd rather not. I'd rather not write software. I'd rather just have a workflow, and if it breaks, I can just go in and see what broke. I don't have to dig through log files anymore. I can just watch the execution list and like, oh, that's the problem. Mm-hmm. And almost always, it's because an external system broke, not because the workflow broke, because an external API just went offline for a bit. So just rerun it, we're good to go.
And I know something that we all keep in mind as well is we're a small, very rapidly growing company that it's like every 6 months, it's like we're doubling. So we might have the years of coding experience, but we want to make sure we can onboard team members, right? Of having those systems in place that can be adapted by people, right?
So, and that's part of it as well, as I have it always documented. Because I'm planning to have other humans in my loop as part of the education team, because yes, it will get to a point where we will hit the limits of scale in a one-person team. So you do see all these people as like 10x engineers and stuff like that, but a lot of that is just increasing efficiency. It's not replacing people. It's just making it so instead of me just having only instructional designers, I've got a lot more subject matter experts, because the subject matter experts are the ones that are able to check the work. They're the ones that you could probably do an AI to do that, but then you still need someone to check the checker. Yeah. If you don't, things go poorly.